Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 7 o'clock. We're going to reconvene to open session. Ms. Mayfield, roll call, please.
Absolutely. President Oshinsky,
Present.
Vice President Tate,
Present.
Board Clerk Sheridan,
Present.
Trustee Aguilar,
Present.
Trustee Gonzalez,
Present.
Trustee Pearl,
Present.
Trustee Prola, and Student Board Member is ill this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfield. Report on closed session action. The Board of Education took the following actions in closed session in accordance with Government Code 54956.9D and E3 to deny claim number 617033 by 7-0 vote. This item was moved by Trustee Aguilar and seconded by Trustee Gonzalez. The board has directed the superintendent or designee to deliver the proper notifications to the affected parties. Next, Trustee Sheridan, can you join us or lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Trustee Sheridan. Next, Trustee Tate will lead us in the mission statement.
The mission of the San Leandro Unified School District is to educate students to achieve academic excellence in order to become confident, collaborative, and engaged citizens in a community rich in heritage and diverse in culture, where we value our traditions and embrace innovation.
Next, the equity statement. Trustee Aguilar, please.
Sorry.
The Board of Trustees believes that the diversity that exists among the district's community of students, staff, parents, and guardians, and community members are integral to the district's vision, mission, and goals. Addressing the needs of the most marginalized learners requires recognition of the inherent value of diversity and acknowledgement that educational excellence requires a commitment to equity in the opportunities provided to students and the resulting outcomes.
Thank you, Trustee Aguilar. I need an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Trustee Sheridan, seconded by Trustee Gonzalez. Please raise your hand. All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Legal statement. Members of the audience who wish to address the board are asked to complete the yellow card available at the entrance and submit it to the board's executive assistant. Speakers who have completed the card will be called when the items reach on the agenda or for non-agenda items during the public testimony. Cards are to be turned in before the items reach on the agenda. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. State law prohibits the Board of Education from taking any action on or discussing items that are not on the posted agenda, except to A, briefly respond to statements made or questions posed by the public in attendance, B, ask questions for clarification, C, provide a reference to a staff member or other resource for factual information in response to the inquiry, or D, ask a staff member to report back on the matter at the next meeting and or put on a future agenda. It's Government Code 54954.2A. Public testimony on non-agenda items. Ms. Mayfield. Thank you, Ms. Mayfield. School reports. Tonight, we're going to hear from both Bancroft and John Muir. So trustees, the order will be, we'll give the presentation first, then I'll ask for comments and questions, and then we'll go to the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. McLaughlin, Cabinet, and guests. My name is Shannon Lane, and I am principal at Bancroft Middle School. Because we shared a couple of weeks ago what really happened already this year at the celebration of schools, tonight I'm really going to cover what's coming up for us at Bancroft this year. Starting tomorrow, all 8th graders will start visiting UC Berkeley through their PE classes. They're going to be going through rotations, and some of those students are going to be experiencing what colleges might look like for the first time. So it's a great opportunity for them, and it's just one short BART ticket away. We'll be hosting open house on March 2nd for our families and our parents to come in and see what our students are doing with their teachers. We're hosting a talent show on March 22nd, bringing fun into our students. It's our second major night event for the year, which is exciting for them. So Civilizations of the World is coming. I haven't lived it yet. I'm excited to live it. Our students are drawing and writing and making posters and creating exhibits all over campus. So it's started, and it's not until May. And Field Day, of course, will be in May. Again, another event that I haven't lived to learn yet, but I'm excited to see what's coming up with that. And promotion, of course, is going to be coming in June. So those are some highlights of what are coming up this spring. And again, we've covered a lot of things that we've already done so far this year. Thank you.
Trustees, any comments? Okay, thank you. Go on to the presentation.
Thank you. So tonight I'm here to also celebrate one of our students. His name is Braylon McCullough. So Braylon McCullough is an 8th grade student who came to mind pretty swiftly as the student who represented what it means to be a Bancroft Bronco. Braylon is a member of Peer Advocates, plays for the football team, volunteers to speak at district events, helps facilitate lunchtime activities for his peers, and is an active participant in his classes. Some words to describe Braylon as a person are big-hearted, supportive, loyal, passionate, and kind. As a student, it was stated that Braylon is able to ask for help when he needs it, advocates for himself, has the courage to admit and correct mistakes, and pushes through challenges in class. It was a clear decision made by the administration team that Braylon was the right student to represent Bancroft. Thank you, Braylon, for remembering to exemplify our Bronco motto. Take care of yourself, take care of one another, and take care of Bancroft. Thank you.
Yeah. In the front. Wow. Okay, looking over here. Ready? And then there we go. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Next up, we have John Muir Middle School.
Good evening, members of the board, superintendent, and our wonderful cabinet, and all of the beautiful guests out here in our audience. My name is Elisa Alvarez, and I am the principal of John Muir Middle School. Tonight, we get to do a preview of next month. Bancroft went last time, and our preview is we are going to talk a lot about our reconnecting and rebuilding relationships in and beyond the classroom. As you all know, of course, this I'm not going to say post-COVID because clearly we're still dealing with some of this, but post-virtual world, a lot of connections needed to be remade with peers and with staff and with everyone on our campus. And so that's been our real focus, is rebuilding those connections with everyone. So we focused on that, and we actually ran 16 intervention and enrichment programs. 16 teachers ran clubs, and 12 sports are being played at John Muir. And so I would say that every single one of those things had a huge impact on our students, their grades, their morale, and how they related with one another. We also have really improved our partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. and we ran data and looked at how every one of these programs impacted kids, both attendance and grades and test scores. And Boys and Girls Club came out on top. So we really want to emphasize that connection and how much they bring to the table to our students and families with their consistency, their on-campus interaction. And we meet every other week, and we invite them to our staff meetings, and we do a lot of work together to ensure a full day program from 8:30 until 6 o'clock at night for now almost 150 students, because we've increased our numbers. So with that, of course, I always look at my numbers, and of our 908 kids, 566 of them increased their test scores on our district test. So we're moving on up. We've been through a lot at Muir, so we've got some ways to go, but I want you to know, no matter what you see out there, they're improving, and we're creating better bonds and relationships, and kids are happy and proud. One final thing I want to say before I introduce our amazing student is I'm incredibly grateful for our new admin team. We have 2 new administrators, and I love working with them and love teaching them the ropes and helping see fresh perspective too, and helps maintain balance for myself. So I'm grateful for all of you to have Dylan Char and myself, Jacob, join the admin team at Muir. We're having a good time. We're working hard and it's going well, and I am forever grateful to have them with me. And so without further ado.
What? I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oops, sorry. Yeah,
That's a
questions. I even had it in my notes.
No, it's great to see you're doing so well, and all the improvements you've made. Thank you. Go ahead.
No questions. Okay. So tonight we are celebrating Ana Liu Me Moana Tupo. Anna is the most well-deserving of this important honor. She's an exemplar student, role model, and leader at John Muir. In addition to maintaining excellent grades, Anna works in the office where she already displays professionalism and maturity that will support her in future endeavors. She is an excellent leader and on the varsity volleyball team, where her athletic leadership and empathy skills come together each week. So she not only supports herself, but all of her teammates. She actually has made it possible for us to we have 28 girls on our volleyball team. As you know, only 6 play at a time. If it weren't for Anna's leadership, we would not be able to run a program with that many students and have them engaged in extracurricular activities. So she truly is a leader, and she runs the show. So we really appreciate her. We are just proud to call her a Falcon and proud to honor her in this award. So please, Anna, join me up here. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have the bond report.
Beautiful bathroom. I know, I was like, when they're going to council, I'll go with them.
Good evening, trustees. I'm going to give you a brief update on the happenings of all the construction around the district. In this first photo here, you'll see that this is some of the equipment pictured at the high school. The good news is a lot of that equipment is getting there because they're getting ready to build the pad. So they're actually getting out of the ground finally. All the dirt work, all the excavation utilities, rerouting everything, tracing everything has all been complete up to this point. So now within the next couple of days, they'll be importing some of the soil and start building the pad. Once that's in, then you'll see some real action over there. They'll start actually, pouring the slab. And so within the next month or so, you're going to probably see something besides dirt. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So since my last timeline, I updated this one and took off some of the ones that we've completed already and added some of the new projects that were recently approved, and they're coming close to being online. So the other thing that I did, there was a couple of timelines that I shifted just a little bit because we did, as you know, had all those rains, and it did cause some delays at some of the sites and some of the projects. So they kicked them up about a month. But as you can see there, the last 4 items are all new that you haven't seen since the last board meeting. So we've got the sunshade project that we're anticipating to do this summer at the high school. We also have the Madison KTK portables that we're planning on starting here in May, and planning on having done for the new school year for those. The other one is we recently approved the solar project. We're planning on kicking that off in August. And then that's for phase 1, that is, and then completion in March. So it's really a short timeline. These things go up pretty rapidly. From what I understand, they're all prefabricated. They come out on site and they just slap them together and build them not in place. They build them on the ground, and then they pour all the footings and then they just stand them up and then they connect them. So it's actually a pretty fast process. And then the final one is the new district office. Anticipated start date is in December of this year, and completion February of 25 as well. Any questions on that slide? And as I said, this is prior to that photo. You saw the original one in the first slide. This is where they're still trenching and they're still putting in some of the pipelines and sewer systems and fire lines as well. And so they're moving right along. We're hopefully, we're tracking so far on track. The only thing that's been a hindrance is the PG&E application. They take a lot of time, unfortunately, and we've certainly put it in prior to even starting this project many moons ago. So we'll see how it plays out. That's the only one that may come into interference, not necessarily with opening the gym, but with regards to the demolition of the old gym. That may push that one off a little bit. And here's the new Lincoln High School. As you can see, this first, what they're calling the A wing, for lack of a better term for now, until that gets named. They've already got all the framing in, and they've started in a lot of the rough in, and they put up shear panel on the other side. It's all shear paneled. So the cool thing about how they're doing this is they've got A, B, and C building, designations. And this is the first one. This is mostly admin, and then they're going to move on to the multipurpose room. So what they do is they stage it, and they'll come in, they'll have their crew set all the forms and pour the slab. Once the slab's done, their next set of crews start to come in right after them, and it follows it all the way through to when they get to building C. So you'll see probably this will be the first thing that's completed. And then by the time they get to C, they'll be in the process of completing that. So pretty interesting. And then we got held up on time on the mirror shade structure. As you can see, they've got everything ground up and leveled, and they're starting to bring in their base rock for the new shade structure and eating area at Muir. And as I said, rain held them up. The ground got pretty saturated. They went down about a foot, digging the dirt out to get their compaction, and then it rained, and it turned into, Lake Muir for a couple of weeks. So they're a little behind, but they're hopefully we'll be able to catch some time up with this nice weather. And with that, that concludes my presentation. This last photo is again of Lincoln. You can see how I was referring to that. You can see back off in the distance on the left where they're already framing, but you can see where they're laying pipe and getting ready to pour slab on these closer up buildings to Leonard Drive. So very fascinating process, really efficient. Any questions?
Trustee? Question?
What's the timeline getting the digital center bank?
It actually does run. I think they're just waiting on some training. I can find out for you. It should be within the next week or two.
Just a quick comment on Bancroft. I know I talk all the time about how good it looks, but it's really great to see the amount of activity that's there now. It's great to see the community using it and utilizing all the new spaces, all the time. And thank you for getting it done on time, because I see the housing next door is finally get started. So it's great to have the Bancroft finished. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed that myself as I drive by there quite often. There'll be people sitting out front, just hanging out, not necessarily waiting for students. They're just people on walks. So it is nice to see that they're utilizing that space. It's coming. I'll let you throw the switch. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have our presentations. The first one is San Leandro Unified School District Bond Program Financial Update Presentation. Dr. Collin.
So good evening, trustees. I'm going to go off of my iPad tonight because that is just a little too small for me in the distance. If you can see it, good for you. Now that we've talked about what we're doing with our bond program, we want to talk about how we're funding our bond program and continuing to do so, and the support we've had from our taxpayers here at San Leandro. So 3 parts to the presentation tonight. And let me get started on the first one. We want to just do an update on where we are with Measure N and look at Measure N planning. With Measure N, one of the very important things is the assessed valuation within the district. So you can see the blue lines there represent assessed valuation going back about 2 decades. And that chart in particular shows you some significant growth that's happened in terms of assessed valuation over the last decade. In particular, 5-year average is just below 5%. Last 3 years, including COVID, including a year where the state capped our statutory growth, that Prop 13 growth was capped at 1% instead of 2%. You can see that reflected there in the 2022 numbers, but it's still 12% growth over a 3-year period. So certainly healthy. We would expect, even with a little bit of a slowing happening in the housing market, that 2024 number would still be strong, just because of a lag time between when houses sell and when the numbers are reflected in a chart like this. So with this, we have this 12% over 3 years, including that COVID period. Throughout we are using a 3.5% estimate. So just as a conservative number. So all the estimates, all the models that are used, 3.5% is our estimate. As long as we hit 3.5% over time, everything's good. Here, we want to look at municipal bond rates, in particular, the type of rates that are used for purchasing or for selling school bonds. And you can see a little bit of a roller coaster over the last few years. But generally speaking, this is all post recession starting at 10 years ago, June 2013. You can see there's been, as high as 3% and as low as almost 1% in there during the COVID era. Spiked up recently, up and above that 3% level, but you see that the rates have started to come back down there, back towards that average, that 10-year average of about 2%. So 2% is what we're looking for here, and 2% is a good number. I think all of us would love to have a home loan at 2% would be a good number. So that's what we're looking at right now in terms of rates. Here is a chart looking at possible scenarios for measure N. And the first three columns there, you see Series A, Series B, Series C. Those are all actuals. There's where we actually sold, going back to June of 2020 when we sold our first almost $75 million. This last September, we sold another $75 million plus $5 million for technology. Looking forward with these projects, with the gym, with Lincoln, with solar, with these other, Bancroft, Madison, McKinley drop-off. With these projects, what we're looking at needing is another $8 million of Series D in August 2024, just a little bridge there. And then coming in with Series E of about $30 million remaining. And that would finish off the construction portion of measure N, leaving a $5 million there for technology that could be, in this scenario, is sold also in August of 2025. So looking at scenarios, the repayment ratio at the bottom there is always what we like to look at as close to 1 as possible. And 1 isn't possible, but close to 1 is possible. And next up, we have tax rate projections. So the gray here is everything through measure J1, all sold bonds, and what the tax rate is, the impact on taxpayers within the district. You can see the light blue, is prior measure N bonds, so the 3 measure N bonds that we've set up and sold already through last September. Then you can see the little red there is the potential 8 million coming up in 2024. The dark blue is that 30 million still available. And then finally, the light green is a very short-term tech bond that could be sold in 2025. So just showing you a scenario of what that looks like. Remember that what we've talked about is a goal of limiting that tax rate to $180 per $100,000 in assessed valuation. And we stay well below that in this scenario. That's it on measure N. Are there any questions here on measure N before I go forward?
Trustee? Nope.
All right, next up, we want to talk about a refinancing option. Sometimes refinancing is a good deal and sometimes not. We've had some that we've said no to. Remember that refinancing is sort of part of the way bonds are designed because it's not one monolithic, not like your house when you borrow, say, $500,000 and it's a $500,000 loan and it's all at the same interest rate. Bonds are really $5,000 loans, and each one of those over time has its own interest rate. So you start off lower interest rates at the beginning, higher interest rates at the end. As time goes on, those ones at the end are no longer 30 years out, they're 20 or 15 years out, and the rates can come down on those. So always important to look at refunding opportunities for taxpayers. Here are all of our current series that have been sold, and you can go back to all of the series that we still have available here. The very top two, if you see those, 2006 Series E and 2010 Series B, were both sold in July of 2013, and they both become callable, meaning they can be refunded at this point. So we went ahead and looked at the analysis. You can see everything else that's outstanding there. The very bottom ones are saying non-callable because of the short term. These are the 4 or 5 year tech bonds where they're so short that it's better to say they're non-callable at that short term. All right. Those are all of the bonds that we have outstanding. And next up, I want to look at, for those top 2 that we looked at, the red chart shows the interest rates. You can see the step up over time of interest rates that are locked in for those. And then the blue is projected interest rates if those were to be refunded. So essentially, it's that distance between the red and the blue is what we're trying to capture with the refunding. And with that refunding for those 2 series, here's what it would look like. Approximately $20.9 million in refunded principal with the activity happening between now and 2038. You can see about a 4.8% average interest rate on those current bonds. And it comes down to about 2% to 2.88% under this scenario. Costs of these, you always want to look at the costs of a refunding. 259,000 would be the total cost, not insignificant, but that amount is included in that potential savings, the potential savings being 3.375 million. So call it $3.4 million in savings for the taxpayers. And we always look at the ratio there. It's about 14% based on net present value. So 3.375 million. What that really means, though, is $1.02 per $100,000. So, you know, for a $450,000 home assessed valuation, you save about $4.50 per year. But that adds up over time and over the number of houses and properties in San Leandro. So it becomes a significant amount. Individual taxpayers probably not going to feel that, but on the aggregate, it is an impressive amount. So the timeline, excuse me, if the board chose to go ahead with this, we're obviously doing the presentation tonight on this option at February 14th. At the next board meeting, there would be a resolution to call for the refunding of this. Pricing and interest, pricing would happen on April 13th, closing on May 4th, and then those bonds would transfer on the call date at August 1st, 2023. So that's it on the refunding. Again, nothing for you to do on that tonight. Just understand that there'll be a resolution next time to consider. The third part of the presentation is I want to look at what a 2024 bond measure would look like, if is it even possible. And here's a scenario that our financial advisor came up with. And keeping in mind that $180 per 100,000, you can see on the chart on the left, all of Measure N in gray, all series, including Measure N in gray, with that scenario we presented earlier. What that would leave is the blue there, still staying within that $180 per $100,000 constraint. Over time, it doesn't really extend it. You could have a potential to have a tax measure, a tax GO bond with the same tax measure, same tax rate, no tax increase, and within the same time frame where you're not extending it out. In this case, it's a $154 million draft bond measure, I want to call it. And you can see what the timeline would look like for that. Where the financial advisor also developed a couple different scenarios for this. 2024 would really be the time frame for it. What the board, if the board wanted to continue to look at this, the question would be March during the presidential primaries or November during the presidential election. And filling in all of the details of when the resolution and what would have to go forward. So to that end, I want to just start the conversation about the trustees' interest in a 2024 election. We do have an item on the board agenda tonight with True North, who is a consultant that we've used a number of times, and he's been very accurate in his work of seeing what the community feels about something like that. Approving that contract tonight does not mean we're going for a bond. It just means that we want to get some additional information to be ready to ask ourselves that question. So that's it for the presentation tonight.
Trustees' comments. Yes, Trustee Gonzalez.
For the refunding, the date, when we refund them, are we doing the same end date or are we extending the end date?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you can see here on this chart. Yeah, I can't read that. Sorry. Let me pull up on my own. You can see on the timeline. So the refunded bonds are from 2024 to 2038, and the refunded bond maturity dates are from 2023 through 2038. So it's always easy to cut down the cost by extending out a loan, but that's not what's happening here. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's not kicking the can down the road.
And then as far as, so right now we're just getting information. We'd like True North. Is the needs assessment going to be happening before? So True North has projects that they're going to be taking to the voters? Or are we doing the needs assessment at the same time?
I think we'd probably be doing it kind of side by side when we'd be looking at that in terms of a needs assessment. What are the things we want to hear from voters? What are the things that they'd want to see within the district? What are our constituents want to see? within the district? What is our own staff? What are they interested in seeing? We certainly have some ideas of what that, we know that there's the need for the projects. Just the question is, what's the level of support out there?
And I will echo, they've been right on.
They've been right on. As long as we listen to them, they've been right on. Yep. Yeah.
Trustees, any other comments or questions? Just one quick one. You did mention geo bond. Can you explain that?
General obligation bond. So just a bond, it's the method, it's what's sold to then get the capital to be able to do these projects, to be able to build the gyms and the new Lincoln campuses and everything else. So general obligation is an obligation that's approved by the voters and then spread among all of the assessed valuation within the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
Dr.
everyone.
Hans. Next up, we have a presentation of the San Leandro Unified School District's 2022 California Dashboard.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent McLaughlin, Cabinet, and San Leandro community members. It's my pleasure to be with you tonight to walk through some of the California dashboard results for San Leandro. This is the first time we've had dashboard results since 2019 due to the pandemic. So that has changed some of the dashboard structure, and I'll talk about that first tonight. Second, I'll review some of the San Leandro data. Third, we'll look at how to access this as a community member. This is all public data available to everyone. Fourth, I'll talk briefly about differentiated assistance status. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Director Celine Liu, to talk about some of San Leandro's actions in response and ongoing from teaching and learning. So I'm sure you all remember the gas gauge style icon that's in the upper left of this slide. That isn't with us this year on the dashboard because that relies on two factors: the status of each indicator from the year, as well as the improvement from the previous year. So we don't have an improvement factor from last year. So what we have this year are the icons on the bottom in purple that look more like cell phone reception bars. The more bars you have, the higher the performance. So we're hoping to see 5 bars across where low performing indicators would have just 1 bar. So the local indicators were brought to you in the fall for approval. San Leandro has met all of the local indicators again this year on the dashboard, which is great. We plan to continue collecting that data now and be using things like the California Healthy Kids Survey and local surveys to meet the indicators moving forward. But the main thing to talk about are the state measures. They're listed here, and I'll talk briefly about a few of things to pay attention to as we go through these one by one. First, we have the academic performance indicator. This is a single point measure in both ELA, English Language Arts, and mathematics, meaning that it's solely based on the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium's tests that are given annually every spring to 3rd through 8th graders and 11th graders. Second is chronic absenteeism. So that's students, the rate of students who are absent 10% or more of instructional days, and that is only for our transitional kindergarten through 8th grade students. College and career readiness is not available this year for us because it relies on test score data from the previous year. So that will be back next year, according to the state. English learner progress is based on the LPAC exam, which is one of our 4 areas of required for reclassification as fluent in English. And that will look at a breakdown of our improvement scores for the LPAC. Graduation rate is the percentage of students who receive a diploma at the end of 12th grade. And finally, suspension rate is percentage of students who are suspended for 1 day or more and any number of incidents. So the first is the general overview of data from San Leandro. And I started with the English learner progress. This is a very strong indicator for the district. We've had a 95% participation rate, which is an important mark to hit. And as we look at the test scores, 60.8% of our students who are classified as English learners made progress from 2021 LPAC to 2022 LPAC. Our ELA and math indicators make up the other academic indicators. And you'll see that here we're 39.3 points below standard for ELA and almost 83 points below standard for mathematics. And I'll explain how those numbers came to be in the next slide. But this is essentially the students who are the average distance of each individual's test score from meeting the standard according to the state cutoff. Our graduation rate is quite high, 92.2%. And that's, we'll look at individual subgroups, student subgroups towards the end of my presentation, and you can see results there. Suspension rate is medium, according to the state, 4.3% of students were suspended one day. Chronic absenteeism was very high, 42.3% chronically absent. I'm sure I don't have to remind everyone what was going on last year with absences and COVID requirements for being away. This was a pretty consistent indicator across the state for students missing school. You also notice that very high in chronic absenteeism is on a reverse scale that is equal to a low performance status. So that's why it only has one bar. And again, college and career is not reported. This is to look at our participation rate penalty is the word that's underneath the colored bar there for ELA and math. And so the SBA, ELA, and math have a scale score depending on the grade and depending on the subject that goes from about 2,200 to 2,700. And so to meet the standard, you need a score near 2,500 as a student. So new this year is a penalty brought to the state of California because the federal government asked us the state to increase the penalty that was being used previously to this new version. So I'll show you how this affects us. As I mentioned, ELA was 39.3%, or 39.3 points is the distance from standard. So we had a 92% participation rate, 95% is required under federal law. So that meant 97 students in the district were assigned the lowest obtainable scale score of 2,200 approximately. And that gets averaged into our data. Had those numbers not been averaged in, our distance from standard would be closer to 33.5. So you can see that. It's a bigger difference in mathematics because we had a lower participation rate. So here we had 225 lowest attainable scores factored in, taking us nearly 9 points down in our score. So now I'll briefly explain how to access this data as a community member. The website is here for everyone, www.casschooldashboard.org. There you can search any school or district in the state and get the end years back to 2017 through this year. And when you search a school like Madison, for example, not to pick on Madison, but to use it as an example, you'll see first the general information, just like we reviewed for the whole district. If you were to scroll down on this website, you'd see demographic information and then disaggregation by student groups after that. If I click on view additional reports here, I have a variety of choices such as the English language arts indicator, which is the one that I've exhibited here. And you can see on the right, this is the page that comes up disaggregating the placement of student groups. It also shows the cut scores for the ranking of performance by the state. We can go a little bit deeper and see things like subgroup level data, participation rates, and as I've circled here, the number of students that got assigned that penalty score. So now I'll move to look at some of the overall San Leandro indicators by subgroup. And you can see here, we have a little bit of work to do. Of course, we know that coming out of the pandemic, there are a variety of learning areas that we want to really focus on. And we know that, but we also know that the work that's going on in all of our classrooms and the teachers are collecting data that goes beyond these indicators here. So it's the day-to-day data of, tracking student performance in class, on papers. And one thing that's encouraging to me is if you look down, the darker the purple color, the better the ranking. Graduation rate, which incorporates students passing courses for 4 years of high school, is very high in San Leandro. So teachers are letting us know that students are performing very well. So these are the race and ethnicity subgroups that the state focuses on. The next slide as the other special student groups that the state focuses on. And again, you see very clearly chronic absenteeism is a challenge across our district and the state, as I mentioned. And other groups are affected differently in San Leandro. And some of them are very small, which is why a few students can really shift the data for the whole district. So if you see no PL, for example, no performance level, that means that fewer than 30 students were in that group. So fewer than 30 foster youth were took the ELA and math exams. If you see not reported, that means fewer than 11 students were in the group. So the state doesn't report any information on that category. And again, as I scan the data across the state, these patterns that we're seeing here in San Leandro are very similar to the fluctuations that other districts are experiencing. I'm going to turn quickly to a couple slides that I borrowed from the county about differentiated assistance. So differentiated assistance is a program that's designed to provide individualized support through the county based on high priority needs across the district for different subgroups. So to qualify for differentiated assistance, a student group needs to have one of these very low status indicators for 2 different priority areas, such as achievement, engagement, or school climate. This shows you that across the county where we have a lot of districts, 14 of the districts in the county, I believe 17 districts, including the smaller ones, do qualify for differentiated assistance this year. So it's especially because of that chronic absenteeism indicator, you can see that many districts are going to qualify for this support. Here in San Leandro, we have, I've listed out the groups that are qualifying this year: African-American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, students with disabilities, students experiencing homelessness, and foster youth. And all of them, except for foster youth, are qualifying because of the indicators across academic engagement and suspension. And I want to just use this opportunity to refer back to that lowest obtainable score penalty. If you factored that in for students experiencing homelessness, for example, on their ELA scores, it's nearly a 40-point decrease because of the penalty. Similarly, if we look up at the Pacific Islander in their math scores, we have, again, a very large lowest obtainable scale score. You'll see this reflected if you dig into the data by school site in places where participation rate was significantly lower. The high school had a pretty low participation rate on the test last year. So that's why you see a very low score on their dashboard. So for next steps, I think it's really important for us to ensure that every scholar has a chance to demonstrate their ability on these single source measures that we have, such as the SBA and the LPAC. So we're really working with school sites to make sure we hit 95% participation on all these tests. That'll also obviously next year allow us to demonstrate on our dashboard the true numbers. We're working currently to review data and deeper data with principals and district leaders to start monitoring finer tuned instruments. And so we're working with them to do that. And also collaborating with the IT department to build dashboards that'll help principals have more timely data to use rather than waiting for state test results to come out every year. So with that, I'll pause for questions.
Trustees, question? Trustee Tate.
So thank you for your presentation. I have a question about the groups that have the smaller groups that you can't really dictate a score, right? A number. So are we doing intervention or different programs to at least try to determine what our scores would be?
That's a great question.
We're
Thank you.
anticipating it.
Yeah, I think those students are much more visible at the school site level to the principals and to the teachers there. We because of privacy concerns, they do get hidden. And I think that is something we need to work hard to correct. And so they are certainly included in all of the work that the principals are doing to provide intervention at the school site level.
Thank you.
Trustees? Trustee Gonzalez?
Yeah, so why did the state change to this, bar system instead of the dashboard system? Just, to me, I love the dashboard. It was easy to see and color code. And this purple is like different shades of purple, just doesn't.
So don't hold your breath, but next year they'll be back with the multicolored gas gauge. And that's because we will have improvement data from comparing this year's status scores to next year's status scores to be able to provide that second axis of data. So that those are the two ways that they calculated the status in previous years, was the improvement from the prior year combined with the current status. This year, we only have the current status. So they rank us from very low to very high.
And then the students that didn't take the test really brought us down. What did we offer ways, and this, you weren't here last year, but did we offer ways for kids to make up these tests that were out with COVID or some other excused absence?
Yeah, I've been talking to the leaders that were here last year, and many of them have been talking about the ways that they want to improve the participation rate this year. I think I have heard stories of a lot of efforts made, and certainly in the LPAC and also the SBA, to really make sure that students had the opportunity to take it. And we're being more proactive this year to take some steps to make sure that there's staffing and plans in place at all the sites to give every student a chance, including makeups if they're out with an illness, for example.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Pro?
Lots of thoughts and comments. First of all, thank you for giving us this presentation. I know I've been waiting for a really long time for data. I'm sure many of us have. It's been a little while, and a lot has happened. And I was going to follow up with the question about, kids who aren't testing. I get why the penalty exists. I noticed that it was in some of our subgroups where we're requiring a little more attention. And so I worry about, not along with the reasoning and the rationale for why they're not testing, what the outcome would have been. So similar to Trustee Tate's question. One of the questions I had about the data was what I think is interesting. I think you brought up the point about the high school graduation rates, and then obviously our point in time data. I'm curious if we have explored, and we don't have to talk about it all now, just more like a point for future discussion, looking at post-secondary completion or matriculation rates. I'm just wondering sort of where students end up to give us another data point with respect to the state test that we're taking, and comparing that to whether students are achieving post-secondary success, whether that be through a CTE program or enrolling or completing college. I know that we can access that through the National Student Clearinghouse data. And we talked, I've had a privilege of meeting with all of the cabinet leaders. So we've talked about also some streamlined ways that the state's trying to collect some of that data. That's something that came up for me as I was noticing the data, was just what is another data point we can look at to try to understand where our graduates, where they're going and what's going on after school, and how well are we able to assess using our metrics that we're collecting.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I first recognize that, we have some limited, the student groups, I should say, that were most impacted by chronic absenteeism were also the ones who had the biggest penalty for our test scores. And so then subsequently had the lowest performance in those indicators. And then regarding post-secondary work, I think that's a great area that I'm very excited to explore. I'm excited for the college and career readiness, which is a pretty complex metric of 6 or 7 things itself, to come back onto the dashboard next year, as well as working with the high school team here to figure out exactly what is the most meaningful data for them to look at to make their decisions as they plan instruction.
And then just related to kind of this, and I know LCAP's happening right now, or LCAP engagements. Will we have a chance as a board to look at over the next few months, as all of that information gets kind of compiled into the LCAP, sort of the breakdown beneath some of the state assessments? We get kind of a raw number and it tells us, here's what's going on at the ELA, here's what's going on with math. And I'm just curious, how many of those data points track across content, right? We know the math requires reading, and if our reading isn't up to par, that can make it really challenging for us to perform at our best on a an assessment that requires a lot of literacy. So I'm just curious if that will be unpacked in our LCAPs, or if there's another study session or something we can do together as a board to really understand, this number's kind of doesn't tell us too much outside of, how kids did on this one test. It just, as we're thinking about LCAP and strategy and financing moving forward, making sure we're kind of targeting those underlying needs.
Yeah, I have that noted as we prepare the LCAP presentations for the community. I'll make sure to be disaggregating that, and it's my pleasure to come back and present you any data that's required.
Great.
Any other question? Okay, I just have one quick question. Please forgive me, my memory fails me every day, but the graduation rate, is that an improvement over the years past?
I was just scanning back several years today, and certainly from the beginning of the dashboard, which was only 2017-18,
Right.
that's a drastic improvement. So this is great news for the district and the students of the district. It provides a lot of opportunity for them. Yeah.
Especially coming out of COVID. That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see.
All right, good evening, trustees, Dr. McLaughlin, cabinet, wonderful SLUSD community. Excuse me, tonight I'm going to be doing that a little bit. As Dr. Reinhardt mentioned, I'm going to be talking about some steps that we're taking to address what the dashboard has helped to highlight in regards to learning in our district. I'm going to be speaking about 3 areas that Educational Services is implementing in an ongoing response to the dashboard data and the state of learning in San Leandro Unified. Because we predicted the dashboard data, as you saw in our fall presentation, we've been tracking and monitoring via internal data such as our Star Renaissance assessments, our attendance tracking system. We already had some structures and processes in place in order to address learning interruption and the snapshot of learning that was just shared with you. That ongoing internal monitoring means that these actions we feel are well-grounded. And in fact, our strategic plan already called attention to some of the content areas that you saw there and student groups that we've been underserving. And that was put in place even without the penalty that we feel distorts achievement data by conflating attendance with proficiency in meeting grade level standards. And since these actions and services are implemented via the LCAP and via our school site plans, that coherence has really allowed us to hit the ground running this year. As you've all been in our classrooms and you saw from Celebrating Schools, you know that our teachers are working really hard to address the needs that have been surfaced. I'm going to start off by talking about our academic intervention. When I came to visit you at the beginning of the year, we spoke about some ways that intervention is rolling out. So here are some updates and additional work that's happening with Tier 2 intervention, or more strategic targeted intervention, across our elementary, middle, and high school levels. Our intervention specialists, of which we have 1 at every school site and 2 of our larger schools have 2, conduct pull-out groups throughout the day for different purposes. And on a daily basis, our elementary teachers also hold these learning academies for students who've been identified as needing that extra Tier 2 or more strategic support. As we've conducted learning walks this semester to better understand what's happening with the Learning Academy, we've identified that the main area of intervention focus in learning academies is on reading, although there are also groups that are focusing on math, behavior, and English language development. The intervention curriculum varies by need, and we're working to systematize how we're progress monitoring students who are in those spaces to make sure that the right students are getting the right support at the right time. When students are in a learning academy, as we see progress and approaching grade level standards, there isn't necessarily a need for them to be in that space. And so that's some additional work that I'll talk about a little bit later in terms of some of our internal assessment work that we're doing. At the secondary level, we have particular courses that are designed to address, again, some more intensive needs beyond what's provided in a Tier 1 or a universal setting. An example of this is our math lab, which is a course that our 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade students could take in addition to their general math class. And that's based on teacher referral and different metrics. The semester course provides some skill building as well as some support on study skills in order to support the student to be more successful in that kind of co-requisite math class and also their other classes. This year, we worked to train teachers and implement an intervention math curriculum that's based on the focal standards of each grade level, but it also integrates discourse, as we understand that based on research, that's an important and necessary part of student learning. We're also analyzing how we place students in those courses. It's a semester course, and so similar to Learning Academy, those students who are enrolled in one semester would have an opportunity to be switched out or to stay, depending on grades, test scores, assessment by multiple metrics to see how they're doing. This semester, we also launched an English Language Arts and Math credit recovery program at San Leandro High School. This 0-period course provides opportunity for school year credit recovery, as well as grade improvement in preparation for future courses. And even though we call the program credit recovery, the site leaders and the teachers are really clear that it's fundamentally about proficiency and standards, of which grades are a reflection. And so this is a mindset shift that as we think about teaching and learning largely in San Leandro Unified, the high school's been working on as part of their site plan, really making sure that students are assessed accurately and that assessment opportunities are built into the classroom so that when students don't learn something the first time, it's not a one and done situation, but they have multiple opportunities to achieve that proficiency and demonstrate their understanding. So while I'm talking about this work in an intervention setting, again, it really is a universal mindset shift that would impact and benefit all of our students. Principal Alvarez talked about many of our tutoring and contract services. And so these are all continuing as we move forward. Sylvan is at all of our elementary schools and our middle schools. Based on your approval at last month's board meeting, we're getting ready to launch the African American Regional Educators Association Step Up Academy. So this is going to be Saturday sessions for students who are referred by teaching staff or site leaders, where students will engage with academic content, but there's also family engagement, culturally relevant instruction, college visits. And so it's really a wraparound program in order to address the needs of those students who engage in that. And they also provide additional services and supports even when we're on break, which we're excited about because of what can happen when we're not in school for some time. And again, even though this is an intervention program, broadly, we're working to improve our ability through professional development with our teachers on providing culturally and linguistically responsive instruction during the school day, not just in intervention programs and out of school time. Our listening sessions with parents and families have also really emphasized that these tutoring services, these contract services are something that has benefited their students. And so that we've heard that loud and clear that that's something that we want to continue. And that input has really helped us to think about how we're designing supports moving forward. When it comes to some of the non-academic indicators, so specifically chronic absenteeism and suspension, I'm going to talk about the system of supports that we have in San Leandro Unified, our multi-tiered integrated intervention system of supports. Given our dashboard data and what it's flagging for San Leandro Unified, one of our first steps is to really break down that data to disaggregate and understand who those impacted students are, to identify trends, and then therefore effective interventions based on that analysis. When it comes to chronic absenteeism, one of the things that we're doing in terms of the data is really some ongoing work to tighten the processes to make sure that our attendance is marked and monitored properly, so that based on more accurate attendance data, we can notify parents and students in a timely manner so that they can respond and adjust in a timely manner. That would be a tier 1 implementation of our attendance prevention and intervention guidelines. And then subsequently, as the number of absences improve, we have continued tiered supports with student attendance review teams at the school level, student attendance review boards at the district level. This all involves high case management by our child welfare and program coordinator, who conducts home visits and also does district level coordination in situations when we have, for example, families with students at multiple school sites who are all experiencing multiple absences and are chronically absent. And so we're really trying to make sure that, again, this is a wraparound service. It's not punitive, but it's, you know, they shouldn't have to attend 3 meetings on chronic absenteeism for their 3 students, right? So what can we do as a district to really support these families? Something else that we're looking at in terms of attendance and chronic absenteeism is a preventive wellness approach and proactive community engagement. So for example, proactive communication about health research and prevention techniques on healthy lifestyles, combating cold and flu, you know, going to see your doctor to get the flu vaccine. And one potential strategy we're looking at is to schedule workshops at each school and support our parent facilitators to hold those sessions. When it comes to suspension, the numbers are such that we can actually do some close case management, especially for those students who are in our overrepresented groups. So we're analyzing suspension data, we're comparing it to last year to identify specific trends and specific sites to target. In the meantime, some of the preliminary work that we've done and our ongoing internal assessment has identified student mental health as an ongoing need. So if we understand behavior as a means of communication and suspendable offenses as an indicator of a potential student need, we might see that a potential root cause of suspension, and regardless, good care for our students would be addressing those mental health needs that can, you know, continue to be high. This is additionally reflected by some of the interim checks data, the California Healthy Kids Survey data that we've received from students talking about their connections with adults, their need for positive interactions and places to go for support. So in addition to the mental health services that we're able to provide, thanks to the board's approval of those contracts, and which our LCAP Parent Advisory Committee has also requested continue, those intervention and enrichment activities also help students to feel more connected, not only to each other, but also to the facilitating adults, to passion areas. Those groups like a friendship group, a stress management and resilience group, are not just intervention, but really can help students to thrive, right? And so suspension is a negative indicator, but we also want to look beyond that to really see how we can help them to be the most positive and happy they can be in a learning environment. And finally, we're looking at some focused work with our site leaders on alternatives to suspension. So this includes pulling a list of every student who's been suspended at every school site and looking at what we're doing to ensure alternative suspension when that's an option. We know that suspension is not an intervention, and even though reentry meetings usually entail the provision of wraparound services, we need to ensure continual monitoring of this indicator. As you saw at Celebrating Schools, our sites are all infusing joy and pleasure into student experiences. And in order to move results for students, learning has to be engaging and it has to be meaningful. And so our professional development is really focused on supporting this. One of the key tactics outlined in our strategic plan is Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. UDL is a research-based framework that guides the design of teaching to ensure that all students have access to high-quality learning experience through multiple means of engagement, processing their learning, demonstrating their understanding. And this year, our professional learning has really honed in on this lens for instructional design. Our district professional learning days have been focused on UDL, and this semester, coming up at the end of March, a specifically anti-racist, culturally responsive universal design for learning. to ensure that the curriculum and the pedagogy really allow students to bring their full selves into the classroom and leverages the funds of knowledge that they bring. These learning sessions provide teachers an opportunity to hone their craft in ways listed in our strategic plan, things like project-based learning, arts integration, culturally and linguistically responsive practices, which we consider all to be strong tier 1 or initial teaching practices. And while the conference style gives opportunities for teachers to learn and collaborate with colleagues from across the district, site leaders have also used this time to connect UDL to their own specific site goals, which they've outlined in their SIPSAs. They've been working to foster collective efficacy based on research from John Hattie on what it takes to move the needle on student learning, that collective belief that all of us together, we can and we are the difference for our students. When it comes to site-based professional learning, site leaders have been working all year to make movement towards their site goals. The Teaching, Learning, Educational and Educational Equity Department has been supporting that through supporting teacher action research, through cycles of inquiry. We've been able to create opportunities for job-embedded teacher professional learning time, even in spite of the substitute shortage, with the support of the Alevo contract that you approved. Thank you. We've targeted professional learning on English language development at our middle schools, delivered by our middle school English learner specialist. We've been working on a selection of new math curriculum, not just intervention, but core curriculum at the high school level for algebra, geometry, algebra 2, and pre-calculus. And that's been side by side with working on pedagogy. So our review criteria for this process had an explicit focus on making sure that instructional materials provided access for English or multilingual learners and students with disabilities. But we know that new materials is just the beginning. So we're already planning for training and ongoing development because it's really about the implementation of what these new materials could offer. And then finally, I'll speak a little bit about the working groups and additional professional learning opportunities. The snapshot that we see with the dashboard of student achievement is useful for programmatic decisions, and it helps us as we allocate funding based on data and needs. But we know that for instructional purposes, for day-to-day classroom decisions that teachers make, there is additional work that has to be done to bring that fine-tuned classroom level data to our teaching decisions. So we have an elementary assessment working group that has been working to evaluate our district assessment system to make sure that what we're using in order to screen students, in order to progress monitor students, is the right tool, and that we have the right processes in place in order to support teachers to use that data well in the classroom. We also just launched a district-wide math working group, which as a former high school math teacher, I'm really excited about, besides the fact that there's a very clear need in our district. The group right now, in partnership with ACOE, is looking at research and best practices, including what's included in the forthcoming California math framework, in order to establish a vision and to make an action plan for math teaching and learning moving forward. We're also working with personnel services to create better onboarding for our new teachers, as well as our guest teachers, so that there's continuity of teaching and learning, even with the staffing shortages and changes that we've seen. And so given all of this, you might wonder, how long will it take us to see growth and changes based on what I've outlined? And while we don't know how or if the state will change how they're doing calculations so that dashboard achievement data is a true reflection of what students know and not whether or not they're coming to school, I can share with you that in the past in San Leandro Unified, when we've previously shared dashboard data, we've been able to see growth within a year. And so as we work with principals and as we work with teachers to dig into the data and to identify, in some cases, student by student, what the need is and possible solutions, as we continue our work to ensure that these actions align with the data that we see, both internal and what we see with the dashboard, we look forward to updating you again on the progress that we've made.
Trustees, question, comment? Trustee Pearl.
I was going to wait for others. I just get excited to talk about this stuff. So this is like my favorite topic. I wanted to just like highlight and well, first of all, thank you for your presentation. Very thorough. I wanted to highlight and celebrate again. I know we talked about at the last meeting, the really creative thinking around professional learning and release and the Olivo contract. Like, you know, you're being a little, you know, we're not being as, I think we all know that there is a sub shortage and it's not a San Leandro problem. It's a global like crisis. And, you know, it's a little bit of an understatement, but I just want to applaud the creative thinking around trying to find something that works. And honestly, it's probably better than a regular release day because the kids are benefiting from it. It's like two birds with one stone. So I just want to appreciate that and, you know, continue to encourage, at least from my perspective, that sort of creative thinking and coming to us with those kinds of ideas because it's so important. And if you're not in the profession, you don't always understand like, why do we need release days? But it's such a valuable time for our teachers to really soak up the content, to look at student data, to do that reflective practice. It's like just encouraging to hear. Also, as you know, you mentioned you really are excited about the high school math, hearing about the early or K-5 assessment working group is really exciting. And hearing the intentional focus around looking at fine grain data. I was looking back, or the point I wanted to make was, you know, in talking to parents and kind of making my way to this seat, I talked to a lot of parents who are also wanting to support, knowing that, you know, it's an all hands on deck approach. And looking at our last LCAP, there was talks about an audit around parent engagement and continuing to kind of assess our practices. So I think there's this great ripe opportunity to, you know, match up whatever's happening around data with parent engagement to kind of pull that third lever. I'm hearing, you know, teachers and administrators, but I know there's many parents out there or volunteers who would love to support in any ways that they can. So as we kind of hone in on what those needs are, those really like, you know, finite needs, I think community is also really ready to support you all. So just wanted to make that point and just celebrate all the work you all are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustees? I have one quick comment. This may be something for communications committee, but the language around suspensions, you mentioned suspendable offense. That sounds really criminal to me. You know, and I think we could soften the language on that a little bit. Maybe that's something that we should look at some point in time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next, we have reports, correspondence.
Thank you, President Casey. So the clerk's report for January 11th through February 13th. January 15th, we had Jeanette Neal, property-based learning sharing. January 19th, Alameda County Building Trades, pre-construction training course. January 21st, Patty Bryson, sign up for garden vent tests. January 23rd, Bay Area Air District, webinars discuss. January 23rd, Navigate 360. Access Superintendent's Symposium starts soon. January 24th, House School Meetings, House School Meetings update. January 27th, Alberts Montpalmo, federal grants for Scott Valley Unified School District. January 29th, Stephen Cassidy, State Nuns, Lake Road Landfill meeting. January 30th, La Familia, 2023 La Familia newsletter. February 2nd, Linda Oy, Student Achievement Nights. February 2nd, Nelson Algria, ACPHD/ACOE COVID-19 update. February 3rd, we had Beyond Differences, Grief and Loss conversation. February 8th, Dara Garcia, United Parents Crab Feed News. February 9th, Alameda County Building Trades, passing of Supervisor Valle. And February 13th, CSBA, Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And that is it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee. There will be no student board member report. I don't see any union representation, so we will have none from there. Next, board committee reports, communication and advocacy.
I just yelled.
You can just yell.
I can bring
Okay, so we had the bond update, a couple of things that weren't discussed in the bond update here. Is McKinley, we're working on engagement regarding the drop-off project, planning to have conversations with staff and a timeline over the summer. The gym is currently working with a company that provides large scale graphics for the big building of the gym. And there's a process, I think it's actually on the agenda today to approve the company that's doing it. And then we also talked about having student art. We don't want student art for the just being student art. We want student art that's integrated and looks appropriate for the space. And then resolution calendar and events calendar. We reviewed the calendar. We talked about the Read Across America event, and I think you've all been invited to fill out the new form for this year. And so I hope you take the opportunity to do that. District communication projects. The enrollment campaign is underway, and you can see buses already in our town that have the campaign going. We also talked about the different advertising that is in effect. And again, I think it's on the agenda for today. Graduation and promotions. The middle school promotions are returning to their sites. High school graduation is going to be changed so there's nobody on the field, which means that each student will get 3 tickets. So this is just a heads up for all the trustees that may be getting calls, because we will only have 3 tickets per family. We'll also be adding the San Leandro Virtual Academy promotion graduations, and they are currently being scheduled right now. So be aware that the dates will roll out. Currently launching the DLI programs, and so we talked about that. We also talked about the LCAP site engagement process. And then our final communication / advocacy discussion was about achievement nights. And so the decision had been made at the prior meeting to proceed with the African American and Latinx. And what we had originally wanted was for every student that met the criteria to get the award regardless of their ethnicity. And we had wanted school sites to do the award ceremonies. And so that had been our perspective, was to do everyone that got the award, had met the criteria to get the award, got the award. And then trying to figure out, how do we celebrate and embrace their cultural expressions as part of this. And so there was a discussion about that. And each time we meet, we kind of go back and forth about that. But we did want to separate the criteria for the award and then the cultural expression of the award as 2 separate things. We also wrestled with the fact that students do not necessarily define their ethnicity with a box. And so there's a lot of things at play for what they consider their ethnicity. If they're adopted, do their adopted parents' ethnicity factor in? And so cultural expression is not always the same as their ethnicity. So you will see that we will be having a conversation under action to have everyone's voice be heard on this, I think, complex kind of conversation. And then to finish out our advocacy conversation, we talked about Legislative Action Day, which is happening March 14th to the 16th. CSBA is still doing it virtually this year, so it does allow everyone to participate from their home. So I hope you all sign up. You can go on the CSBA website and sign up for it. And then in April, there's a trip that's being sponsored by CSBA to Washington, D.C. I know that Trustee Aguilar and I are already signed up to attend, and that's April 24th to 26th. And so if you are able and interested, then you can also sign up for that trip on the website. And that concludes the communication report.
Next, we have curriculum policy.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so under policy, we have a bunch of meaty stuff for you on the agenda today. So we reviewed CSBA board policy updates and moved those forward to you for your approval tonight. Josephina Parra, a teacher over at John Muir, came over and presented to us some of her students' work around reviewing the dress code policy. And we've determined a process that we're going to, have in place for the next year or so to be able to review this information, to really digest it, and come together, work with students, but also work with a good process to move forward, because the dress code is not something that we can just approve snack right now. It's going to be a process, and it's something that we have to work together on. Coming down to curriculum, other really awesome stuff. We have a couple of new courses of study for your approval tonight. Unified Physical Education 1 and AP Human Geography. Oh, I want to teach AP Human Geography. It looks so fun. And then course of study revisions, Introduction to Yearbook and Journalism, Journalism 2 Honors, and Yearbook 2 Honors. Yearbook 2 and Journalism 2 Honors are courses that had been revised to offer the honors designation. So if you have any questions about that, we can ask that tonight, but otherwise, great stuff. And then some informational items for us on the high school math curriculum adoption update. The Teaching, Learning, and Equity Department is working with high school math teachers in order to ensure math curriculum is aligned to support rigorous math instruction. And so we reviewed multiple ways for students to be assessed to ensure that the curriculum will support EL students and students with disabilities, and are recommending or at least the committee for review is recommending specific textbooks and information that's going to finish up that adoption update conversation. And as far as another item under information, dual language immersion program updates were provided by staff. So our DLI programs are working hard and working good, with Mandarin DLI at Madison and Halkeen shifting to Spanish Kinder DLI as well. Washington Elementary also having the first graduating class of DLI students. Yay, that's exciting. And then let's see, Computer Science Education Elementary Program. We got an update saying that state leaders from Madison and Monroe have been connecting their teachers to UC Berkeley for professional development. And then under Eden Area ROP courses of study, we had a conversation on UC doorways for San Leandro High and Lincoln. And we noticed that Eden Area ROP has the same doorway. As far as dental assisting and sports medicine classes counting for science, photography, and computer art qualifying for visual and performing arts courses. All other courses are G electives. Otherwise, that was a really meaty and great conversation. I'm looking forward to next policy and curriculum meeting when we have more in front of us. Our next policy and curriculum meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 20th. That's our report for tonight.
Thank you, Trustee Aguilar. Next, Facilities and Technology.
Tough one to follow. So we did meet last Wednesday. We started off as always with a technology update from Larry Simon. We had a presentation from Dr. Collins, same presentation that he showed the full board here tonight. There were a number of items on our change orders and some supporting action items to continue with the projects throughout the district. Notably, we'll also see on tonight's agenda under information systems, an item that was brought regarding backup servers, also upgrading the San Leandro High School graphics lab, and then a couple of items under facilities and construction regarding a playground budget at McKinley and the shade structure project at the high school quad area. And that is it for my report.
Thank you, Trustee. Next, Finance. We meet again on March the 1st. Next, Date Committee.
Date meets March 8th.
Thank you, Trustee. Before we go on to the consent agenda, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. It is now 8:28. We'll resume back at 8:33, please.
Just tell the way it's going.
Hopefully the.
Maybe. I haven't decided.
Trustee Parola, can you join us, please?
There are the long.
All right, let's move on to consent agenda. Are there any polls this evening?
No.
Seeing none, can I get approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Aguilar, seconded by trustee Sheridan. Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Next, action discussion item, general services, adopt CSBA board policy.
I'll move N1A.
I'll second it.
And when they move by trustee Aguilar, seconded by trustee Tate. Please vote. All right, 7-0. Item B, N1B, CSBA 2023 Delegate Assembly Ballot. So in our paperwork, we have 3 on the ballot. We can vote for either 1, 2, 3, and or add a write-in. 2 of them are incumbents and 1 is a new member wanting to be in. Do we want to have a discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve all 3.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion moved by trustee Gonzalez to move all 3, seconded by trustee Sheridan. Any discussion? All right. She's no longer on there.
She's not qualified.
She's not qualified.
Right, so she accidentally did the trustee designation, but instead I'm going to be appointing her as the county delegate because that piece is what she was meaning to apply for.
Separate.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of nominating all 3, thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Good job. All right, agreement N1C, agreement between San Leandro Unified School District Adult School and Boys and Girls Club of San Leandro.
I'll move item 1C.
I'll second it.
Moved by trustee Sheridan, seconded by trustee Tate. Please vote. 7-0. Item 1D, San Leandro Unified School District Achievement Nights. So I'm going to start off the discussion. It's been talked about, as we know, in communication, has been talked about by different parent groups, have been talked about by the community. My feeling is that, as trustee Gonzalez was alluding to, that we should separate the race or culture from achievement and do them separately. Do the achievement at each site and then do some type of cultural celebration. I know when I was at Muir's open house, they had some of the parents making the food there. It was amazing. I could just see doing that at each of the sites. What I suggest too is that we do develop an ad hoc committee. So for the time being, pause those celebrations, let those students get their achievements at their respective sites. But we as a group get an ad hoc committee together and decide how to move forward with that, because I think that's a very big discussion and we want to have, take a deep dive into a discussion on how to move forward with that. Trustees, how do you feel? Yes, trustee.
That way, we're gonna do another mayor, make a decision, we don't know what we're doing. How are we voting? I mean, how does this is.
We're discussing it. We're discussing how to move forward. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Any other trustees, any questions? Are we in agreement to do it like that? Is that how you want to do it?
I do have a question. So, are the schools, do we know from each school site how they want it based on stakeholder input?
We know some parents have said so, and some teachers have said so, that because they feel that they're limiting other groups.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so if you're doing achievement at the site, it's more inclusive. And so it's, as trustee Gonzalez said, if you meet that criteria, regardless of who you are, then you'd be getting the award, which I think is a more better way to do it. Different. Sure.
Okay. So, longer than I've been here a decade, so even before here, we've always had these achievement nights, and it's tied to ethnic groups that historically, we're not achieving what we're, so it was a movement. That movement we're seeing has changed a little bit, and what it has kind of morphed into here is, well, my ethnic group's not being recognized for achievement. My group's not being recognized in achievement, because it's kind of gotten, kind of tethered together. Well, why aren't I being recognized? So what we're seeing right now, and I think the advocacy group is seeing as well, is it's just, we need to stop and sit there and look at this and say, here's achievement, and here's celebrating ethnic groups, cultures, and do we untether that? What does it look like to recognize our students for achievement? Have it done at their sites, cultural events, all these things. We just kind of need to pause this year, because as you've seen from emails and other groups, why isn't our group recognized? Why isn't this group recognized? I don't want us to all of a sudden recognize somebody and then change it next year. I think it's a good idea. Our staff has worked very hard on trying to figure out how we recognize students. And we can't, every year we're dealing with this, so I think we need to pause, have a committee, talk to schools, talk to stakeholders and say, how do you want your students to be recognized as San Luis? Because, because I've done some research up and down the corridor, those nights have kind of been changed. Yeah. So it's, been a while for us to kind of research it and see where we go next. So what I'm asking and put it on the agenda tonight is, can we pause this year? We'll give those, we already have recognition medals ready. We'll do that at their sites. But then we'll create an ad hoc committee to move forward for next year, so we can tell our communities and parents, and staff, this is how we're gonna recognize students. Done. Move forward. That's what we're doing. Did that make any sense? I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
We've tried to do an ad hoc report. It just, it's just hard.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Yeah, so one of the things we had talked about in the committee was we actually wanted to involve like community engagement on this for next year, or as soon as like this year was over, start a community process to have this. And so as long as the community gets to have a voice, but I also think the staff and the teachers need to have a big voice in this as well. And so, yeah, I am totally happy with a pause for this year. That we just recognize the achievement at the school sites. We already have the medals to do that, and leave it and work on this for next year.
Trustee Pearl, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other comment?
The only point I was going to make was I think I'm totally new to looking at this. So as someone who is new, my first question was like, what other awards are there? So I do think definitely for someone who's on that committee, I'd prefer to spend some time looking at all the ways students are being recognized. So we're not being redundant, and we're also not losing the purpose and the original intent of these awards. There are many different ways. I was on UCI's website and looking at their various equity initiatives. And I think ultimately a lot of the intention around this appears to have been to support students through an equity perspective. And I do think that it should be tied to our strategy around supporting students of color, or students who are not represented in the ways that other students might be. So I fully agree that we should sit down, talk about the original intent, study this. And, I do think we should also, if we're going to talk about populations, like students and families should be a part of that process, and to ask them how they might want to be recognized. Some groups might not want an achievement night. They might want something else. And so, right. Great to revisit.
Anyone else? So if I'm correct, the vote would be on putting it on pause this year and developing an ad hoc committee on how to proceed for next year. Correct?
Yeah. Because I'll work on messaging, get that out, and we'll put the sites.
We have a motion.
We have a motion.
I'll move it. Trustee Gonzalez, let her move it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we put it on pause for this year and create an ad hoc committee to explore this. I'll second it.
Moved by trustee Gonzalez, seconded by trustee Pearl. All in favor? Should we do the ad hoc committee tonight? Just like once again?
No,
Let us hit the message.
it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Do that.
Okay.
Because I want to go to advocacy and talk about what that should look like.
Yeah.
We just stop before member.
Got it. All right, on to action item 2A, True North Research Inc. Bond Feasibility Proposal.
I'll move to a.
I'll second.
Moved by trustee Sheridan, seconded by trustee Tate. All in favor? Administrative Services, 3A, Academic Calendars 2023, 24, and 24, 25.
I'll move three. I'll second.
Moved by trustee Tate, seconded by trustee Gonzalez. All those in favor? 7-0. Item 3B, Basic Medical Assistance Stipend, CSEA.
I'll move three B.
I'll second it. Moved by trustee Gonzalez, seconded by trustee Oshinski. All those in favor? 7-0. Resolution, item C, resolution 2315 to reduce or eliminate classified services.
I'll second.
Moved by trustee Sheridan, seconded by trustee Aguilar. All those in favor? 7-0. 3D, standard agreement between Department of General Services, Office of Administrative Hearings, and San Leandro Unified School District.
I'll second.
Moved by trustee Sheridan, seconded by trustee Gonzalez. All those in favor? 7-0. 4, Educational Services, contracted services agreement between Camp Arroyo and Washington Elementary School.
I'll second it.
Moved by trustee Gonzalez, seconded by trustee Pearl. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item B, approval of San Leandro USD 2021 to 2022 school accountability report card.
I'll second.
Moved by trustee Tate, seconded by trustee Sheridan. All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item C, 4C, approval of memorandum of understanding between San Leandro Unified School District and alongside 2022-23 pilot program.
Four C.
I'll second that.
Moved by trustee Gonzalez, seconded by trustee Sheridan. All in favor? Item carries 7-0. Item 4D, approval of memorandum of understanding between Alameda County Office of Education and San Leandro Unified School District for Tobacco Use Prevention Education Program 2023 to 2026.
I'll move four D. I'll second.
Moved by trustee Tate, seconded by trustee Pearl. All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item E4E, approval of high school courses of study, Unified Physical Education 1, AP Human Geography, Introduction to Yearbook and Journalism, Journalism 2 honors, and Yearbook 2 honors.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved by trustee Aguilar, seconded by trustee Gonzalez. Item F, approval of memorandum of understanding between National Center for Youth Law and San Leandro Unified School District.
We didn't. vote.
I'm sorry, we need to vote on that. On E, yes. I mean, motion carries 7-0. Item F, approval of memorandum of understanding between National Center for Youth Law Studies and San Leandro Unified School District.
I'll move four A. I'll second.
Moved by trustee Tate, seconded by trustee Gonzalez. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Facilities and Construction, 5A McKinley Elementary School Kindergarten Playground Project Budget.
I'll move five A.
Seconded.
Trustee Paul.
Okay, moved by trustee Tate, seconded by trustee Pearl. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item 5B, San Leandro High School Shade Structure Project Budget.
I'll move five B.
Second.
Moved by trustee Tate, seconded by trustee Aguilar. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item 6, Information Systems, San Leandro High School Graphics Lab Upgrade.
I'll move 6H or 6A.
I'll second.
Moved by trustee Sheridan, seconded by trustee Tate. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item 6B, Backup Servers.
I'll move 6B.
I'll second.
Moved by trustee Sheridan, seconded by trustee Gonzalez. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Cabinet reports, Dr. McLaughlin.
I'll start off with positive, celebrating school, which great evening always is. We're just seeing what, if you haven't recognized, we try to do one corridor and then do another. So we have the middle school of that area, and then the elementaries that feed in that middle school come in one night. So hopefully parents can see what they're gonna see in the middle school and what they're doing. It's nice to see that it wasn't uniform across the board. Okay, it was, yes, they hit certain pieces of the strategic plan, which we want to see, but every elementary school is unique. And I think when you'll see the middle school and you see the high school, everything's unique. They're all doing positive things. And as you can see, the theme is kindness. Trying to get our kids after COVID. A lot of wellness pieces that are happen. So I was just thrilled to death. And I know we have this new thing where we're recognizing a student and the principals come and speak as well. I just don't think we can do enough. And hearing the positive of what we're doing in our schools is just really, for me, a nice thing to put on a website for us to talk about and go away with. That's why we're here. I really do those things. So I look forward to the next one. And then the third one will be our high school and the adult school. And that's always a wonderful thing as well. Had a wonderful meeting last week with the new mayor, Mayor Gonzalez. Again, one of the reasons why we moved into that city hall is to have a relationship with the city. And it's nice to start off already with a nice conversation when you just come across and talk about common ideas, goals the city is looking into, how they're going to move forward, working with the city manager, et cetera, et cetera. It's been a nice start. I'm excited about it. We talked about numerous ideas of how we can collaborate as school and city, and to me that's refreshing. I've been looking for that for a while. The last thing to talk about is we're going to you see this dashboard, you see that see data, and data is wonderful to dive into and analyze. You know me, I'm always going to be the realist. The one data point that's not on there is the chronic absenteeism of staff. And the other big data piece is the shortage, staff shortage. So you're going to see, you heard it from our leaders here. They're the most creative people I've ever seen. They're going to go out there and look for everything we can trade, anything we can do. But if 35–40% of my people don't come to the professional development, it's not going to stick. Okay, and so Dr. Patel will tell you as well, we start hearing from the parent, the first thing to point out, it's not a teacher in my classroom. There's not this, there's not that, there's not this. This is the workforce problem. This is not in education, it's everywhere. So it's uncharted territory. So as a group, we need to come together. And I like what Jack said, we're going to have to be creative. And I see this being creative. We have virtual teachers coming in, like, we have an aide in the room. We're trying everything. But again, when they're going to try to tie us to a test score, okay, it's not, we're not going to rebound from this pandemic like that. It's going to take the workforce coming back. It's going to take a rejuvenated passion in the classroom from educators, from all angles, to really attack this problem. That learning loss is real. It's real. And we're going to see, I don't know how many years down the line, this group that moves through what the pandemic might have done. The graduation rate's up and that's going well, but do we really care about the testing? You know what I mean? And so we got to look at it all. Like I said, that's why I love celebrating schools. You do see kids smiling. You still see kids wanting to come back to school. Get the parents excited. Get the teachers. There's a burning. And it's real. We're not just making it up. They have to take these days. And I'm not trying to go after our academic teachers. It's just real out there with the workforce and all. So, I'm always going to be real to you because I feel like I got the best staff. And every day, they're telling me about new ideas and things we're going to look for. We're looking at videos to put in the movie theater now to recruit people. And we may have, they're going to Portland next week during the break to go try to recruit teachers. So we're not sitting down and saying, hey, we give up. And I want everybody to know in San Luis, we're not going to give up. So when you're talking to parents and constituents, we're not giving up. It's just, there's a very realistic thing out there right now. So we'll keep talking about it. We'll keep having those creative ideas. And we love it. You guys always support us. But we need a person. Yeah, that's what it's going to be down. So is it parents, get more than, I've talked to some of the service groups like Rotary and Kiwanis. I'll talk to how do we get involved, maybe helping with paras and intervention, things like that. Because it's not about money. It used to always be about money. Right? We don't have the money to do it. We don't have the money. Get the money. Now you just got to find the person. Yeah. So I've talked to unions about it, and we're trying to be creative as well. But it's a frustrating piece. I've never had this in my career, but it's always we don't have the money. We love to get the test scores out. We don't have the money. We got it. But now we have the person to do it. So anyways, I appreciate the teaching and learning department doing a wonderful presentation and showing the reality of data. But that piece, I think, and we've been talking about the superintendents at our level, where's that piece being shown? Okay, you go through and see kids with no teacher in the class for a couple days. That's got to have an effect, especially if you haven't shown up on your own as a child, and then you come to school to finally get instructions, and there's no instructor there. So, I mean, it just kind of compounds as we move forward. So, again, we'll keep moving on. The one piece that talked a little bit about was some city folks, and it's just kind of going on, we talked about it here. And I'm having conversations with Dale Scott, who's our financial person, is teacher housing. Okay, the ones school district, and I think it's over by San Jose, Jefferson, they did this, but they had a school to turn into apartments, whatever. They filled every position in their school district because they have the housing. People are there, people are going. So we're gonna have some conversation about what does that look like? I might bring contact to a group that can come in and analyze the city and see what land do we have here that could be taken over or eminent domain, or, you know, start having those conversations. But when we talked about ideas for the barn, you know, we talked about kitchen refresh, modernization, but this may be one of them.
Yeah.
Is future teacher housing, and it could be something really positive to work together with the city. You know, because if we want to move on for the future, if we don't fix this housing thing, it's just, you know, whack-a-mole. You know, because it is difficult for teachers to live for. Get the teachers, the parents, the cafeteria workers, maintenance, everybody like that. So I'm working on that on the side. If you have any ideas, let me know. But I talked to Dale Scott today, and he's got some ideas. As we get ready for another measure, I think that might be something the community, the community members I talk to, especially in the service group, they get it. Yeah, they get it, and there is some examples to kind of look at. You know, so I'll be bringing that to you as it comes. And again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll involve these in this again. There you go.
Thank you. Next, next up, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
More importantly, right, to the dashboard data. So thank you to Director Tom Reinhardt from Assessment and Accountability, and Celine Liu from Teaching and Learning for just all that work. And to the other team members that were behind it, Joanne Clark, Monica Guzman, Doris Castillo, Rachel Vitania, who've been working together to make sure that our intervention specialists, EL specialists, counselors, teachers, principals are all digging into the data and just really getting to what Celine referred to, student by student, name by name. We're small enough in San Leandro to wrap our arms around our kids and families, and we're going to get to it. I want you to know that LPAC testing season is underway. It's launched along. Not only are we launched, but it will go until the end of May. There are over 1,549 hours of one-on-one testing needed in addition to group testing that will be done tirelessly by our staff, and they're working with our site principals and everyone on at each school site to be all hands on deck on how to make sure that every English language learner gets a productive, good testing experience. And then we did launch our LCAP Parent Advisory Committee this past Wednesday. Dr. Mike and I got to greet them. Joanne Clark and I got to, and along with Keziah Moss and Michelle Mayfield, got to listen in the parent breakout rooms around what is going well that they want to make sure we keep doing, because they don't want us to stop the things that have been working, but what is missing from their site perspective, knowing that moving forward in the rest of the PAC meetings, they won't just be thinking about themselves and their own site and their own children, but they'll have to think about, you know, all, what is it, 8,846, almost 9,000 kiddos. And so I'll be sharing that data with you all. And then next time we meet in March, we'll be Dr. Collins will share the fiscal landscape on what budgeting looks like for state and federal funding, because we make priorities in general that we can use for any plan. And we'll also be looking at student achievement data, not just the dashboard, but our local measures, so they can get a good picture of what our students are needing before we go into the April meeting where we look at checks, survey, and broad community data. Alongside that LCAP engagement with parents, myself, along with directors from business and operations and admin services, will be visiting the San Leandro Leadership classes at the middle schools and high schools. We'll put students in 6 groups. We'll take them on a walk, whether it's Clell taking them to the cafeteria or Dr. Reinhardt taking them off to talk about how testing and teaching and learning is going. We'll do small focus groups with students to figure out what's going well and where we need to improve so we can bring that information not only back to the board in a presentation for the LCAP, but also to our PAC. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up, Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services, Dr. Zanapatine.
Good evening, everybody, board and Dr. McLaughlin. First of all, I hope that we're all looking forward to be able to enjoy the very nice and necessary week-long break honoring President's birthday week. And tonight, I just wanted to just share that we're continuing all of our recruitment efforts to fill the classified positions, right? That at the same time, trying to fill those positions, also trying to assess some of the professional development needs that these employees have, and so that we're able to better serve them and also build their capacity, and we'll hopefully be able to do that just in time for that spring professional development day. We've also started this marathon of participating in many of our local universities' job fairs geared at teacher recruitment. You heard from Dr. McLaughlin that we'll be taking a trip up to the NABE conference, the National Association for Bilingual Education, up in Portland. There's a Bay Area contingency of teachers out there that we're planning to woo back to the Bay Area to work in our programs. So we'll be up there. When we return from break, we're going to be hosting our own teacher recruitment fair here at the BLC on March 8th. And this is where our principals are going to have the opportunities to interview folks right on the spot and give them a screening, interview, because we'll already have all of their applications. And so we're hoping that we find the best candidates early on to join our team. Additionally, as we're getting ready for break, we are also getting ready to host another intercession with the Boys and Girls Club. We are going to be running that the week of February 22nd at Hal Keene and John Muir. There's room for everybody who wants to join, and we have been filling up those spots pretty quickly. We're also proud of just the efforts in general of building, expanding our after school programs. And right now, we're currently serving about 1,100 students across the district. And then finally, just I hope that you've had the pleasure of seeing our efforts that are being made around the student enrollment campaign by seeing some of those student faces who represent our districts on the sides of AC transit buses running up and down our surrounding cities. I don't know if you've all checked those out, but those are the faces of our students. They're not Getty images, they're not stock photos, they're our students from our classrooms. And so they are going up and down Oakland, Alameda, Hayward, Fremont, obviously San Leandro, and even San Lorenzo. So we're, we don't stop at, recruiting from other places, but that's how we're going to we have to keep a step above everybody else. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, next up, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, Dr. Collins.
All right, briefly following up on some of the conversations around the dashboard, I want to put out a reminder that we are continuing to review the approximately $22 million in COVID fundings that we've received. We're spending approximately $7 million per year for this 3-year period, and we just crossed the midpoint of that timeline. With COVID fundings ending next year, we're also receiving an additional $13 million in Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant funds that will help extend some of those COVID efforts through the 2027-2028 school year. Coming out of COVID and having a dependable funding stream for a 7-year period really is an amazing and unique situation. Being able to plan that far out, I can't think of any other time in my career when I've been able to do that. On the governor's budget front, the state has released trailer bills giving greater detail around some of the governor's proposals from January, and the Legislative Analyst's Office released an analysis of education budget proposal. We're looking forward to the May revise for additional information and affirmation that the proposed COLA of 8.13% will be funded. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, Assistant Superintendent of Information Systems, Mr. Larry Simon.
Thank you, board, and thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. I talked about this a few months ago, but I just want to give you a very brief security update.
At the national and state level, it continues to be the topic, even at our local level among our neighbors, that gets the most attention, and it really continues to drive home. Continue to be cyber attacks against school entities just keeps increasing in the last couple of months. More and more districts getting hit. Has potential, obviously, to severely impact both the instruction and business operations for extended periods of time, and just create reputational loss for these organizations. So locally, we're in the middle of a lot of changes here around that. We're beginning the rollout of multi-factor for all of our administrators who are have access to our most critical data around that student data before we begin that rollout to other units of the organization. You also approved an agreement tonight for an external audit of the district security. I predict that will be the first of many such agreements. That was the service provided by our insurance provider, but likely not the last thing you'll be seeing in that area. It's really just an early stage in this comprehensive security audit we're doing internally. We're working on minimizing the district's exposure to these most common attacks and these most common issues. And I anticipate you'll see more in the coming months and into the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, board representative reports, Alameda County School Boards Association.
I have still in draft form to introduce Jackie, trustee Jackie, to EXPA. So let me just say, we thought we were going to have a meeting in February, but we aren't yet. And I will get this email out to introduce you as the new rep. So that is the status.
Thank you, trustee. Next, Eden ROP.
So we had our first meeting, I think it was last week. So we had the audit report on the agenda to a review, but they hadn't attached the audit report. And so we've actually pulled it, and it will be reviewed and voted on in March. It is up on the website right now, so anyone can review the audit report for ROP. We had a lot of policy updates, and as I understand, prior to my being on, they adopted the CSBA policy. So that meant that we get the updates that you guys get as a regular course of action. And so there was quite a few updates to review, since they only meet every other month instead of monthly. And then we didn't have any students that were being recognized this time in San Leandro, but there were 4 lovely students from other districts that were recognized. And I will say that I remember being on the board for a year, and that was my favorite part. And I'm happy I'm back, because that's still my favorite part. We reorganized because there's 2 new representatives, myself and Joe Ramos from Hayward. Gary Howard from Castro Valley is the new president, and Juan Ocampo from San Lorenzo is the vice president for this coming year. And then we are meeting in March, and we're also looking at having a governance workshop as part of that March meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, trustee. Next, Mid-Alameda County SELPA.
So we had a meeting last night, and it was a short meeting, but it was a good meeting. We restructured the board. Our new president is Dolly Adams, and the VP for a second term is Sarah Prada from Hayward. And so we had a few informational items. The directors, the 4 directors gave an update. The board representatives, we all gave an update on our district. And that is pretty much it. They gave a few informational items, and then our next meeting will be in March. But I did introduce trustee Jackie to that meeting. I told them that I'll be relocating soon, but hopefully we'll maybe be here until June. We'll see. But I did say she was the alternate, and also that in my absence she may be available. So that's it.
Thank you, trustee. City Disaster Preparedness Council.
Thank you. This may come as a shock to you, but there has been no new information or movement. We're hoping that under the new founded leadership of the city that we see some action this school year. And that's it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, future business consensus items, trustees. So I have one, I don't necessarily know that it's a consensus item. So when we do the joint meeting with both the city and San Lorenzo, I have a suggestion that we do talk about teacher housing. I think that, you want to have a discussion with the city about it. And I know there's been some discussion. You were hosting.
I personally like projects, facilities, moving around the city, doing streets, things like that. I gotta talk to San Diego and see if they can do a new assessment. It's just, sometimes it's just hard to find a topic that all three can talk about. And I look at their own of that place. I still got some.
Okay.
It's just, we talked about college before, safety, things like that. There is all of this, we can talk about the tree plan.
That's a sticky subject over there.
Tree plan.
Yes, it is.
Can we put it on hold and get an ad hoc committee?
But I'm working on it. How's that?
Okay.
Okay.
I will get back to you on what I talk to the mayor, get his idea.
For the vice mayor.
It will not be, we as well, as we get to the full.
Yes, thank you. There you go. All right, additional suggestions and comments from board members. We'll start with trustee Perola.
No, I really don't have one.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
perfect.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Okay. So I attended the open house for the high school. And, I like the format going into the classrooms and them doing little, activities. I mean, I really like that format, and the parents and the siblings and the students all seem to be enjoying that format for the open house. I've attended some of the LCAPs. I also wanted to let everyone know that April 20th is the Scholarship Foundation dinner. So they're going back to having a live dinner, and that's April 20th. I attended the Notables concert at the high school. And I love that we have such talented, creative students here in our district. And I love that we do put so much time and energy into the arts here. So that's wonderful. I did want to share on a personal note that I sustained a pretty bad concussion on January 15th. And I'm still having, I have a headache right now, and I have trouble finding words. So if I'm looking at you and I don't remember your name, or I can't find the word, or I say the wrong word, I'm going to blame it on the concussion. And my doctor said at 6 months that I can use that excuse. So
That's
I'll do my
life every
best.
day. Anything else? Trustee Pro.
Feel like I've talked a lot today. No, I just, again, want to appreciate staff for the presentations. I know it's a lot to prepare, so thank you. Same thing, been popping into LCAPs whenever I can. So want to appreciate the site leaders. Sometimes, running those in multiple languages takes like the whole evening. So just appreciate them for just making time, and appreciate, our superintendent today pushing on some big, bold ideas. I know that, we do a lot of facilities bond work, and I think that trying to push the envelope and really address some other big systemic challenges is exciting. So glad to be hearing that as a, blue sky world, next big step.
Trustee Aguilar.
We'll pass the mic.
Thank you. Okay. The only thing I have to say tonight is that I'm signed up and ready for Read Across America. Okay. My favorite event every year. And this time I'm going to do something different. I'm going to bring 3 different books. I'm going to let the kids choose. Okay. And then I'm going to have a lot of fun. So I'm going to be there on my prep periods and have a good time. It's just so much fun. And I think I'm going to get a Seuss hat, but anyways, I'll step off my soapbox, and I have no other report.
Trustee Sheridan.
Yeah, I'm getting over that cold that's been going around, so I really didn't attend many of these events that you all have. But I did sign up for Reading Across America to read to a couple of classes. I'm looking forward to that, and I want to take the rest of my time to acknowledge and thank the wonderful Miss Mayfield, who every meeting is always taking care of us and thinking of us. And again, thank you. I want to give her a round of applause. Truly the best admin around. Thank you.
Trustee Tate.
Yes, I don't have a lot tonight, but I do want to say that few of us attended the El Costa breakfast on this past Saturday. And that was really nice to be able to get together in person, collaborate, meet new trustees, meet trustees that have been there, but you haven't met them in person. So it was really nice to hear from Senator Wahab, thank you. And then also the new superintendent, Elise Castro. So it was nice to just get updates from them about what's happening in the political world. And also we talked about the whole child community schools. And it was just really good to get together and be amongst other people in education. So, and yes, thank you, Miss Mayfield. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for the candy. We appreciate you. So that's it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jesse. Celebrating schools, I had one big takeaway for me. It's about teaching students to have their own voice. They were talking about students when you're in disagreement or you're arguing with somebody and having the ability to say, I need this, I need you not to do that. That's not something I grew up with. I was told, do this because I told you to do so. And so I know it was really difficult for me to have a voice and be able to express myself, but it was really great. I kept hearing that theme over and over again. And I think the best example of that is someone who's not here, and that's Trustee Proctor. She has a voice and she has a very loud and clear voice. And that's one thing that I really appreciate here. And she's such a good example of that. I too went to the open house. It was my first opportunity to really see the quad. What a beautiful facility it is. How great it's going to be when we do our welcome back barbecue there. It's just a nice space. You don't have to put picnic tables out there. Those benches from Spain are out there. I know, how nice. That's great. And then I too was at the El Costa breakfast as well. Senator Wahab, two interesting facts about her. She said that she was when they introduced her, that she's the first person from Afghanistan to be elected to any office. And second of all, she's the only senator who rents. So that really hit home. That was, yeah, it was a big, aha moment to think that, they too experience the same thing that many of our students and teachers are facing in terms of housing. So it was a big topic during that breakfast. It was really great. That's all I have. Next board meeting will be on March the 7th. And then our special board meeting celebrating schools will be Tuesday, March the 28th. I know Dr. McLaughlin has a suggestion for adjournment.
Michigan State, I think, again, deal with this. And then the second piece is one of the most iconic members of Sierra Unified is in hospice right now and really struggling. That's Shirley Beal. If you remember, her and her husband was always utility in London. Just I call her I know we're my bosses, but she's my real boss. Because she will come in my office and tell me really how I'm doing. And so she's a fighter, and I just like her have our thoughts.
Yeah, Miss Beal was my yard supervisor when I went to Monroe, and when I ran and going to some of the events when you're running, to run into her all these years later and see her.
I'll tell you, when I first got here, you really do a lot of listening.
Yeah.
People point at her and say, that's the one.
Yep.
She'd come to my office, right, Miss Mayfield, and she'd boss. So anyway, that people adjourn and let's have just some positive thoughts. Think about it.
All right, so I need a motion to adjourn and having good thoughts for those regionally involved in the shooting, as well as Ms. Beal.
I'll move.
Moved by Trustee Sheridan, seconded by Trustee Tate. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.